So we're back at our permaculture landscape project. This is weekend number 2, and a lot of stuff has actually happened during the week. First off, we have received 8 cubic yards of sandy loam. That's going to go and fill in the garden where all the veggie patch is going to be. Here we've got a ton of sand. This is going to be the base that the pavers are going to rest on. You want to use sand because it provides a nice even surface for the paving. It also compacts well. And as you can see, part of the team's already out here shoveling dirt. We're going to take you in the back and show you the other stuff we're working on. Alright, so here's the first selection of trees that were required for this project. Because it is a permaculture-based project, all the vegetation that we're planting is going to be something that can provide edibles. So going across, we've got a dwarf peach, mandarin oranges, a 3 variant apple. These are neat because it's actually 3 different apple varieties spliced onto a single stem. Lapin's cherry, a plum, a white peach, Kiefer pears, green gage plum, and then these 2 little guys here are fig plants. And so these are fig trees, and so these will be the first ones. And most of them are going to go in this strip right here, which is the orchard that I'm standing in. And a couple others will be planted in various different places around the yard. Now, today is a novelty here in Arizona. We have rain, or we had rain, believe it or not. And if you look at the trench here, you can see what I was talking about with caliche the last time. You see this trench is still full. We had about 1.5 inches of rain last night, and because of the caliche and because of the compaction over the years, this is literally cement hard. And so water will not soak down into the ground very easily. So it's a temporary problem for us. It actually makes our jobs this weekend much easier because the ground is soft for one of the only times we'll see it soft in the next couple of months. It's been like 60, 70 days without rain, so we don't get it very often. And it's nice to be working under cloud cover so we're not sweating to death. All right. So these, which were also arrived this week and brought in the back, are our pavers, 6x9s in kind of a varicolored or multicolor. You can see there's different color gradations. There's even some tans towards the back. Those are going to form the base layer underneath the gazebo over here where we finish the fill, basically. The other good thing about the rain is it actually helped compact this a little bit, so we won't have to tamp as hard to get it done. And then over there is where the garden is being infilled today. So we've got a lot going on. Most of this is still, at this stage of the game, is really just brute force hauling, getting stuff from point A to point B so that we can finish up and do the finer things later on. The other thing we're working on today is Jack's playground, and similar to the way that we use the retaining wall blocks here to raise up to make the garden, we're going to need to use retaining blocks to actually use to level off the land, and I'll show you a little bit more about setting those in a few minutes. So when you're using block to make a true retaining wall, you need to make sure that everything is level, and that when you're working on an area that has a slope like this, it makes it even more difficult. So the number 1 trick is to find an even point that's the same height at both ends of where you're going to work from. Now in our case here, what we actually did is we used the block wall. So I've lined up over here the base of our retaining wall with this seam in the block wall. Now the nice thing about doing that is if you follow the block wall down, you can see that when they built it, all the seams are even, so I know that the seam at the other end will be the top as well, and that actually works out to be with grade. Now, the other challenge here is that because this dips down, what we've had to do is actually inset a lower course here, and the way to do that is as you're coming along, you'll get a point where you've got your drop, and you're going to have to dig a very large excavation for your first block in here. And then as the ground slopes down, more and more of the block is exposed. The other piece to this is as you're laying them in, particularly because this is a retaining wall and not just a decorative wall, you need to make sure everything is level, both linearly like this, as well as front to back. And it's the front to back is truly the most important part, because if your wall is pitched like this and you infill behind it with soil and with rock, what will eventually happen is your wall will collapse. Now the nice thing about these blocks is you can see they all have a little lip on them. So what you do is you dig down. Now, if we were somewhere that had softer soils, in other words, not caliche, what you would actually want to do is dig a level layer and then put a layer of sand down, just similar to what we will do with the pavers. This stuff, however, is, when dry, basically like concrete. So once inset, these won't shift at all. Just make a little secondary trench for the lip and push it down. And so as you set it, you'll see that it'll either be level, it'll either be on or not, and you just simply adjust based on that. Like I said, you want to check front to back. This is high in the back, so what we need to do is bring it down, check it again. Yep, and we're good there. And just to make sure everything works visually, we're going to set the second course, put it into place, check it, and then check again with the level. And you can see that everything's there. So with this, it's really a matter of rinse, lather, and repeat. Go do the next block, the next block, and the next block until you're done. So just as we were finishing up bringing the last of the sandy loam in yesterday, the skies opened up and resulted in this. So we got about 1.5 inches of rain last night, and now you see why, we have so much trouble with this yard with the caliche. This is also the reason why we're putting the lawn in, because the lawn isn't technically a permaculture thing. It's just, it's nice to have, but it will also, with an infill of soil and laying a sod lawn on top of that, it'll turn this section of the yard into a giant sponge, which will help to absorb this when it occurs. Now yesterday was a bit of a fluke. We normally don't get 1.5 inches of rain, so this is fairly excessive, but it still happens every time it rains. And so with that sod in, that'll be all set. Now we've got the area for the play yard all finished up over here in terms of framing it out. What we're doing now is just we're correcting the last of the grade issues over here, because one of the things, if you come over, you can see that this is where that giant pile of dirt was, and back behind the pile of dirt we have a lower section that's flooded as well. And so rather than have multiple flooded sections, we want to correct the grade through here so that after planting the trees, this will all drain out effectively. The other thing we did today while the ground was still soft is we cut out the stub lines to where the trees are going to be. This is so we can finish up the irrigation for them. In the near future, what we're going to have to do is actually dig out the trees themselves. And this soil is so bad, we're going to have to use some of the loam from the garden to amend it, because it's just the density of the rock and the quality of the soil is just so poor. The other thing we're going to do is use the residual blocks we have to create rings around the trees, raise them up with a bit more of the loam in there, and it's a secondary garden. You can get a bi-level effect of growth with the tree up top and vegetables down below. Now, one of those things that I always forget is that when you are working with enthusiastic literalists, you have to be very careful about the instructions you give them. So here's the garden all infilled with the loam, and what I told my assistants to do was make a big pile in the garden so we could spread it out. Well, they did in the back corner. So Basically, they put it in the most inaccessible location possible, so I had to spend about an hour kind of undoing that and filling it all in, and then bringing the excess out to the front so we could easily access it for when we do the trees. The final thing that we've been checking is that with that heavy rain, you can see that some of our irrigation has dropped a little bit more, so we're going to have to do some more leveling in these areas. And the good thing is that this is really seriously compacted now, so once all of this dries, we'll be able to, again, re-level this and then start putting the pavers down. So, based on the amount of water we've got in the yard right now, there's not so much that we can do for the rest of this weekend, so we're going to call it quits on weekend number 2, and we're going to look forward to weekend number 3 when this is all dried out. So, we're deep into weekend number 3 on this project. We spent the better part of the day doing the last of the really heavy-duty drudgery of this particular project. For starters, you'll notice that the grade in here is much higher now. These pipes were sticking more than a foot up off the ground yesterday. This morning, with the amazing help of some folks from the homeowners church, we managed to bring in 10 cubic yards of filled dirt, good soil, that will go underneath our lawn. The goal here in raising this and providing this soil rather than using it straight on the caliche is not only does it have something that the roots on the sod will be able to grab into, but this will become a big sponge for water when we have those epic rain events. But we were very, very lucky this morning because it's basically about 12 tons of dirt, and so we had 12 folks show up with shovels and wheelbarrows this morning and help us get all of this spread out. So what would have taken us 2 days was only a couple of hours, and that was absolutely fantastic. Across the rest of the yard, we're cleaning up, getting ready to do pavers, getting ready to have the gravel come in. The major thing we did today, though, and what took an absolutely epic amount of time, was digging the holes for the 8 trees. And basically, this soil is just so heavily compacted, so much caliche, and I know I keep talking about it, but it literally took me all day long with a pickaxe and assistance getting all of these 8 holes dug. The stuff is just incredible. So we've got all the piping laid out, it all stubbed out. We've got all of our holes dug. We've got our trees, and the next thing to do is to plant them. So this is really the turning point in this project for us, because we actually get to work with vegetation. Finally, after all the work that we've been doing, we finally get to play with plants. So we've got the collection of trees here all laid out next to their holes, and we're going to do the planting. Now, I'm going to break some of my own rules on planting, because this soil is really so heavily compacted and such utter crap. I mean, we were pulling big chunks of asphalt out of the fill that they used. Is that I will be amending the soil that we put in. Normally, I don't like to do that, because if you amend the soil directly around the tree base, around the roots, they can grow through the amended stuff very easily, but when they hit the outer wall of the soil, then what happens is the tree roots will bend back and come back because they don't want to grow into the hard stuff. But because this soil is literally that bad, we're going to have to put some organic material into it, because there's literally none at the moment. So the first thing you want to do when you're getting ready to plant your tree is, almost all fruit trees are a graft. And you'll see here this point, this is the base, and this is the actual tree that was grafted on. So this was cut at one point. These need to be planted in such a position that they don't get the full sun, especially here in the Arizona summers. So when the sun will be basically over here in the summertime, it's winter now, so the sun is low, we're going to want to position this so that graft point is over here. Now, normally on most trees, you'll find the graft point down at the bottom. And the thing you have to be concerned about with that is not only pointing it away from the sun, but also ensuring that you don't bury it because it introduces a rot point. So, the first thing we're going to do is take the tree out, because these are what are called bare root fruit trees. And so, even though the nursery that we picked ours up from, which if you're in the Phoenix area, it's Baker's Nursery, great nursery, they just throw in some stuff in a pot when they put them out for sale. So you want to kind of clean that off. So here you'll see, and that's been in there for a little while because we've got some fresh roots. So now this hole is much bigger than this tree, obviously. So what we're going to have to do is figure out how much backfill to add in and then place the tree. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, in order to introduce some organic material, we've got here the sandy loam that we're using in the garden. And I'm going to mix this in with the woody mulch that they put around the trees. And this will help leaven the soil a little bit. And so, just put a base of it. You don't want to overdo it. And then, this gives you an idea of how hard the soil is. Easiest way to break through it is with a crowbar. The reason why I'm doing this way rather than just shoveling that dirt back in is that the wider an area that you can break up, the looser the soil will be to allow the tree to grow into those areas. Let's just bust this stuff up a little bit. And do a depth check. A bunch more. And honestly, at this point of the day, just don't have a heck of a lot of oomph left. I want to kind of mix it up a little bit. If I could have an assistant come and help shovel a little bit more stuff into here. So, there we go, that's the tree positioning. So 3 scoops out of there. Alright. And then just come in and give me some more from that side. Try not to get any of the big rocks. Alright. So we've got enough in here to stabilize the tree. Next thing is to grab the hose and give it a quick spray. It's just to get some moisture down in there in the bottom. I'd already pre-soaked the holes after digging. Okay, and now just finish knocking soil in, or soil in. we're going to do is, once I've got these trees in, we're going to come back and we're going to use our retaining wall blocks to make a roughly 6-foot diameter ring around these guys. And that will be where the watering system goes, as well as provides a secondary place to plant low vegetables. So I'll go ahead and finish this up. Now, one thing you'll note is I'm not staking the tree. If a lot of times when people put trees in, they stake them and then they tie them off really tightly. Well, what occurs is the more that the stake is supporting the plant, when the wind blows and keeping it still, the less the roots will grow from in a strength perspective. So if you can manage to leave your trees unstaked, your root systems will actually grow stronger more quickly because the tree has just the minorest bit of extra movement. Now, since most of these trees are short and we have a tall block wall, the wind in through here is not extremely strong. So we should get away with not staking at all. If you do feel that you need to stake your trees, make sure that they've got at least an inch or two of lateral movement in all directions, so that they do have the chance to move. Don't stake them so tight that they can't move at all. God. I swear this stuff is more rocks than dirt. Rake. I'm just gonna add just a little bit more. What this stuff will do over time is, because I'm introducing just a small amount of organic material, it'll actually start to break down and become soil. Will also help possibly attract earthworms, who will then further improve the soil. But I don't think earthworms could actually get into this yard based on the amount of caliche in the soil. So we might have to import some from my garden. Because the easiest way to tell if your gardens are healthy is that if you dig and you find earthworms. The more earthworms you find, the healthier it is. We have some land up in Seattle that is extremely healthy, and you get 15, 20 worms in a single spade full of dirt. And I've spent the better part of 10 years improving the soil at my house here in Phoenix, and it's just getting to the point where we're almost into double digits. Okay, just step this down, and we are done planting our first tree. So we're just going to basically repeat this process for the next 7. So now that we've got all the trees in, the next thing we need to do, and this is actually going to be the homeowner's homework for the week, is to do the tree rings. So what you see I've done here is I've used the same retaining wall blocks that we've got in the rest of the yard, and I've laid them out upside down. I did that on purpose so that we could gauge the ring size before we bothered to set cuts, because I don't want to do any more digging in this yard at this point than I absolutely have to. So once you lay out your ring, just get a little etch down in there. And then set your stone. Now these are less critical in terms of being level, other than looking at them. Because you're not really. This isn't really a retaining wall we're building. It's only a single ring. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take more of the sandy loam, and this is the loam mixed with the last of that bark, and we're going to build a bed in here. So normally when you plant a tree, what you want to do is you want to have a well in the ground so that the water draws down towards the tree. Here what we're doing is we're building one using the retaining blocks, and then the sandy loam soil will retain water. And what this will do is, over time, as it breaks down and it starts to mix with the lower soil, it'll end up helping improve the quality of all of the soil under the tree. But particularly, it's going to hold the moisture and allow it to seep more slowly into the ground, thus keeping the ground around the tree moist all the time rather than just at the times when it's watered. The other nice thing about this is that now that we've got something you can actually grow plants in, you can put low cover plants in here, like for example strawberries are one of my particular favorites, because the strawberries develop runners and they will basically fill the entire ring in a couple of years. Plus you get lots of awesome strawberries. The other things that I've done, artichokes, broccoli, cauliflower, zucchini, although only plant one zucchini, because if you plant more than one zucchini, you're going to get zucchini. But at any rate, at this point in time, with the trees all in, we're done for this weekend. So based on the progress we've made, these will all have tree rings in them by the next time we're here, and we will probably sometime in between now and then start the process of laying out the pavers. What I was just carrying in are the borders for the paver area that's going to go underneath the gazebo. You knock these into the soil, you put nails through these, and these provide your edges to make it easy to lay out your pavers. But tonight we're done. We've moved a lot of soil today, so the very last job of the day is to get the hose out and wet down everything. The other thing we got to do is we've got some dirt left over here from putting the trees in. That's going to go into the play area as fill. But that's pretty much this weekend. So the next time we see you, we'll be starting in on pavers. We will be marking out where we're going to put the lawn. And we will be starting to think about building the gazebo.